I believe the American dream was created to keep men in line. I believe the American dream was created to keep men hopeful, to keep men working, to keep men in servitude, to keep men, in forever indentured servitude. That's what I believe, right? I do believe as well that there was a small portion in time. I do believe that there was a small portion in time where the American dream actually was attainable, right? Once upon a time, right? And we're talking about after the World War, after the last World War, where baby boomers were born, right? After the last World War and anywhere up into maybe the 70s, right? Up into the 70s. After the 70s, everything went downhill. And of course, many of you watching this, you probably wasn't even born, just like myself. I wasn't born at this time. So many of us, we were born in a clusterfuck, right? We were born in a cost of living crisis. We were born in we by the time we were adults, much of housing had gotten way too expensive, right? It cost way too much to own a house, right? We could no longer buy a house at $2.50 like the baby boomers did. But I really do believe that the American dream was installed, that type of programming was instilled on the American men specifically just to keep us working, just to keep us dreaming, right? Because as long as you continue to put the carrot, in front of the rat who's on the wheel, right? As long as that rat is hungry, guess what he's going to do? He's going to continue to run on that wheel, right? That mouse, that rat, he's going to continue to run on that wheel. He's going to continue to chase that carrot as long as he's starving. And I think the American dream is just, they give you just enough hope, right? They give you just enough to make you feel like maybe I too can have the American dream. Maybe I too can live, in the most prestigious way that I can. Maybe I too will be able to outpace inflation. Maybe one day that things will change in America and we all will be able to afford the American dream, right? As long as they keep hope alive, they're going to keep you in the rat race. As long as they keep hope alive, they're going to continue to keep you on the wheel. That's just how it is, right? Look around. Look around, right? Look at the cost of everything, right? Look at the cost of goods. Look at the cost of services, right? Look at the cost of everything. Look at the cost of food, right? Cost of food from 2024 to 2025 is up around 2.9%, right? Going out to eat, right? Takeout, right? Food at restaurants, that's up around 4.5%. However, since the pandemic, since 2020, 2021, right? Food in grocery stores, the CPI reports that that's actually up 16%. So food is up actually 16%, 2020 to 2025. Now, I want you to ask yourself, right? Has your pay increased 16%? Has your pay increased 16%, my guy? Buddy, buddy. Has your pay increased 16%? I know my pay hasn't increased 16% because let's say you're making, 30 an hour, right? What's 16? Let's do the math. 16% times 30. Let's say, that's supposed to be around maybe $18. Don't quote me on that. I know somebody's about to do the math, but don't quote me on that. But that's supposed to be like an $18 increase. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and do the math right now. Let's go ahead and do the math right now. Cost of food has been up 16% since 2020. Right? Let's say you make $30 an hour. Let's 30 times 16%. Okay, so I was way off, but $4.8, right? So it has you stand at the same job, right? You stand at the same job. Has your paycheck, has your salary went up 16%, right? Have you seen if you're at $30 an hour, have you seen a $4.8 increase since 2020? No, you have not. The only way you have probably seen that is if you quit and left and went to another job, right? So people's wages have not even caught up and will never catch up to the cost of living rising, right? To the cost of food rising, right? Nobody's going to catch up. right? The whole 9 to 5 system is just a rat race, right? Once upon a time, you used to be able to work at the warehouse and buy a house. Once upon a time, you used to be able to work at, the warehouse, buy a car and a home and have, a family of four. Once upon a time, 1965, right? Maybe 1975 when, plants and warehouses were really big and you could afford, a whole living off of it. But now you can damn near barely do anything, right? $100,000 is like not even nothing anymore, right? I've made $100,000, right? I've made 6 figures, and let me tell you something, right? And I also have people to provide for as well. So $100,000 is nothing anymore, especially when you stay in a major city, right? I used to like, man, I can't wait to make my first 6 figures, right? And actually, my first 6 figures I actually made driving Uber and Lyft, right? Years ago, right? I made my first 6 figures, right? Ask me where that money go, right? But $100,000 is nothing nowadays. Right? You need more like 150, $200,000, right? If we're really talking about affording the American dream, right? In American dollars while living in America, right? You need around a $150,000, right? If you're talking about a family of four, if you talk about a family for, we're talking about 150,000, 175,000, upwards to 200 and $250,000 a year. That's what you need to comfortably live. And I'm talking about you have savings, you have money put up, right? You can afford your insurance, health insurance, and car insurance. You got a good car, maybe actually 2 cars with a $250,000 a year, right? Kids, well taken care of. They're in activities, they have tutoring, right? They're in the best neighborhood at the best schools if you do put them through school, or maybe you choose to homeschool them, right? Listen, you can afford all that comfortably, and then you can afford to take your family, the whole family, right, on multiple vacations. Because Lord knows to take a family on vacation, whew, you're going to be spending anywhere between two, three, $4,000, right? She want to go to Jamaica. She want to go overseas, right? She want to go to Hawaii, right? That's going to run you $5,000 to $10,000, right? She tired of going to Orlando. She tired of going to Miami, Ninja. And even then, those prices are still high. For a family of four, right? Family of two, three, whatever. You still going to be spending thousands of dollars. Most people can't afford to go on vacation. Most people can't afford to fly overseas. Most people can't afford that tab. Most people can't afford their groceries right now. Most people can't even afford to go out. Listen, is the American dream still real? Is it? Is the American dream real? Right? And maybe the American dream is actually real when you go somewhere like Thailand somewhere, right? When you go to Thailand and you take your dollars, your American dollars over there, yeah, you can stretch it and you can live like a demigod, right? Or if you take your talents over to Colombia, to Brazil, Chile, right, Peru, Africa, right? If you take your talents elsewhere, Dominican Republic, anywhere in the Caribbean, right? Listen, maybe you can buy your American dream there. But for the average everyday Joe Smo, the American dream is no longer affordable, right? For the average everyday Joe Smo, I mean, people are not seeing it, right? People are not seeing it, right? This is not, like I say all the time, this is not 1925, this is not 1945, this is not 1965, right? Where your dollar actually stretched and you were able to do something with it. Nah, right? Only the people who are with the money, with some serious amount of money, they can really afford to live comfortably in America and live their best life in America without having any kind of economic repercussions. Those are the only people at this point, right? And people are still striving, and myself included, still striving to achieve a certain, threshold to make a certain amount of money. Listen, my goal, I'm trying to make a certain amount of money, and I'm trying to dip. Okay, right? I'm gonna get my American dream one way or another, right? Maybe that American dream is not actually in America, right? Maybe that American dream is somewhere overseas, so I can go over and live like a demigod, Ninja, right? Maybe it's not here in America, but that's my whole plan. Listen, I gotta get all that I can get and take my talents to South Beach, right? What y'all gotta understand is America is a corporation, right? America is for the corporation. America is for the business, right? America is not for the 9 to 5 worker, right? If you plan on staying a 9 to 5 worker, and I mean, shouts out to you, whatever. If you plan on staying a 9 to 5 worker, you got to understand that that is not a way that is going to pave your way to any kind of financial success at all, not in 2025 and beyond. If you think that that 9 to 5 is going to get you somewhere, and I'm not saying not have a job, but what I am saying is that you need to spread yourself across many different industries, spread yourself across many different aspects, and start thinking, more into longevity and what actually will work for me to achieve this financial stability that I am looking for. And you want to achieve that in a 9 to 5. Now, maybe if you're some kind of doctor or attorney or something like that, but even them, they don't rely on their 9 to 5, right? Many of them, the best doctors, right? The highest paid doctors and attorneys, they go into their own private practice. They go into business, right? That's how many of them are able to afford the quote unquote American dream, right? Going into business, because we know that this country is built for the corporations. This country is built for the business owners. This country is built for the businesses, right? The strongest survive. That's how it is. I don't know how else. I don't know how else to put it to you, right? You're going to have to figure out what is the American dream for you, right? Because many people have given up. Many people have absolutely just given up. Many people have thrown in the towel. Many people don't know what to do, right? They're working dead end jobs. They're working jobs that they don't want to work. They've been, working a job that hasn't increased pay in 4 years, right? Like I said, the cost of food has went up 16% since 2020. Have your wages went up 16%? I highly doubt it. Most of you probably only got a 0.3% raise or something, a dollar raise if you're lucky over these past few years. And you've still been making the same thing from 22. Some of y'all making the same thing from 2020, right? Listen, they're not going to help you. America is not going to help you. None of these politicians are going to help you. These corporations, they're not going to pay you to leave. Well, they will pay you to leave, but you know what I mean. They're not gonna pay you to leave, right? They're gonna pay you just enough to where you get up, scramble out of bed, right? And knowing that you don't want to, right? They pay you just enough to get up out of bed and to come in and do your work. That's all, right? They're barely paying you enough to eat. They barely paying you enough to pay your rent. They're barely paying you enough to do your mortgage, pay your mortgage. They're barely paying you enough to create a family. They're not paying enough, right? So you're going to have to create your own American dream. You're going to have to create it. And like I said, many people are waking up to and understanding and realizing that, hey, the American dream may not be in America, right? Maybe, the American dollar is still worth something, right? I can take my American dollar and take it over here, to people who still, hold, dear to it, and they still look at it as, this is still strong, and we accept this, right? We accept this as a dominating dollar, a dominating currency. Yeah, you can take that American dollar, right? You can take that power of that American dollar, take it elsewhere, and achieve that American dream somewhere else, which a lot of Americans are waking up to, right? Maybe you can get your Thailand dream. Maybe you can get your Colombian dream. Maybe you can get your Dominican dream, right? Maybe you can get your Brazilian dream. Maybe you can get your Nigerian dream, South African dream, wherever you want to go that's beneficial to you, benefiting more from life, right? Because even if I had millions of dollars, right? And if I was retiring right now, if I had millions of dollars, I would not retire in America. I wouldn't. I would never retire in America. I would take my talents to South Beach. I'm going to Thailand. I'm going to Dominican Republic. I am going to be living like a demigod, right? I am going to be living like a demigod. I promise you. I am not basing my future on the stability or instability of America. And once I get the money, you start moving it around, moving it into different things, create a business, do little different things. Yeah, you gotta set it up for yourself. But yeah, the American dream definitely was created to keep men in line, right? It was made to keep you hoping. keep you working. Maybe one day it was made to keep you voting for the wrong candidate. It was made to keep you, tangled up in marriages, right? It was made to keep you married to the state, right? Because like I've told y'all all the time, right? Women are the state. Women are they are representatives of the state. So it was created to keep you wrapped up in the state, so the state can keep eyes on you, so the state can keep the money coming in. They knew that one day these women weren't going to be shit. They knew that one day the majority of women were going to file for divorce, so they can wrap you up in the state, continue to take more money from you, get child support from you, right? So she can take the house that you worked your ass off for and paid off, right? So they can take the house or split whatever the assets is for the house, take your 401k, give her some, take whatever assets you have and split it and give her some, so you can take your ass back to work, right? So you can continue to chase after the rat race after they've taken everything from you. Yes, sir. It was made to keep you in the matrix. And that's the American dream. And that's an after pill. Peace.